Ms. Nelson, the defendant is your former son-in-law.
Yes.
Married to your daughter. Is this
Yes.
your daughter? They were divorced and they have children.
Yes,
How many
ma'am.
children do they have?
4.
Your lawsuit claims divorce. Your son-in-law was court-ordered to pay 60% of, among other things, child care costs for the
Yes,
children.
ma'am.
And that it was decided that you would be the child care providers for the children,
Yes, ma'am.
and that your son-in-law owes you for child care. Your daughter works off her 40% of the child care by working in your family business.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Son-in-law says the choice of child care provider was unilaterally taken away from him, and I'll get to his defense in a moment. When were you divorced, sir?
Last year, November 7th.
And at that time, was your wife employed?
Yes.
And who was watching the children at that time?
The hours were set up to where I watched them when she was at work and she watched them when I was at work.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Just a minute. And if there were ever any problems with babysitting, who babysat for the children?
Her parents or my mother.
Why don't you step up here for a moment? Okay. How old are your children?
I have a 3-year-old, twins that are 8, and a 9-year-old.
When did you make arrangements with your parents to babysit for your children?
While we were married, there was a lapse in between our shifts, and my parents would come out for an hour and a half until I got home. And then when he moved out, I needed them to come at 11:30 p.m. and watch them all night long until I got home at 9 o'clock in the morning.
When they came for that hour and a half, prior to the two of you separating, were they paid any money?
No, they used their gas and everything to come out there for nothing.
I just asked you, they weren't paid any money. They came out to take care of their grandchildren.
Right, they did.
And then, when you were working at night, they would come to your house to sleep?
Right.
And you didn't ask for any money from your daughter, did you?
That was when we started being actually paid cash for the babysitting.
Who paid you cash?
Well, the logic of the divorce was Bill was to pay part of it and my daughter was to pay part of it.
Was that discussed with Bill?
It was court-ordered, ma'am.
No, it was not court-ordered that you were to be the babysitter. That's not what I asked you.
No, it was
I
not.
asked you, were you paid any money?
No.
And when was it that you began to be compensated?
When the divorce was final
In November.
in November, and we had to take over watching the kids on a 40-hour basis.
When for the first time was it discussed with your former son-in-law that you were going to be babysitting for your grandchildren and expect payment?
I have never discussed that with my son-in-law as far as a cash payment, ma'am. When we were first babysitting for them, when they were still married, the agreement was he would keep our vehicles in running order for our business because that was his line of work in exchange for us babysitting the children.
You mean you had actually an arrangement as far as that was concerned?
Yes, ma'am.
As grandparents? You had a business arrangement, a
Yes.
barter arrangement. You would barter, he took care of the cars at the times that you filled in for babysitting.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh. And what was your daughter doing for you in exchange for babysitting for your
She
children?
works at our donut shop.
What?
We have a donut shop. Sometimes she comes in and she'll fry, sometimes she'll ice. Other times, if our vehicle isn't running, we use her vehicle to deliver with.
Who had a conversation with him with regard to your taking over full-time babysitting responsibilities starting in January of 2001? You did.
Yes, actually, Your Honor, my parents didn't start watching the kids again until the end of May.
May of
got
what
home,
year?
This last year.
And what conversation did you have with your former husband about your parents taking over that responsibility?
At the time, he wanted me to let his girlfriend watch the kids. I didn't feel comfortable with that, and I found a friend that would watch it for $440 a month total, and he wasn't comfortable with that. That left me with no other choice but to go back with my parents. And I discussed it with my parents. They told me to tell him that if he would come over and keep the maintenance up on their vehicles, that would be the deal. He said, no way. He refused. He got upset.
Well, you got somebody who was not related to you to take over the babysitting responsibilities, you know, during the overlap time for $440 a month. And your parents want, how much, 1,000?
880.
880. Where did you come up with that figure?
Well, because we would have to drive to Star and watch the kids there. We would have to bring the youngest one back to our house so that we could continue taking care of the things we had to do. Then we would have to go back to Star to pick the kids up after school. And then we would have to go back to our place so that Tammy could come over and pick them up. And we would take the kids to all their doctor's appointments or anything they had to do at
They're
school.
grandparents. That's what grandparents do. What was wrong with his fiancée?
Well, I have a letter that she gave me telling me my kids weren't wanted. I have him on tape telling me that he doesn't want to see his kids. And I went to pick him up one time when he had them for the weekend, and they were all in the house. Him and her were in the bedroom taking a nap, and my 2-year-old was 3 houses down by himself, heading towards a busy street. And I just didn't feel comfortable with her having them on
That's
a
a good
regular
reason.
basis.
If that happened, that's a very good reason. You're absolutely right.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Linda and Floyd Nelson say their daughter's ex-husband, Bill Perry, owes for his share of daycare costs. Bill says Linda and Floyd are the babysitters, and he doesn't approve.
Now, what was wrong, Mr. Perry, with this friend that you got to watch the children for $440 a month?
I do not know these people, Your Honor.
You may not know them. Did you say to her, I'd like to meet them? I'd like to meet this friend, spend some time with this friend before I agree?
No,
Did you
I did
say
not.
that?
No, I did not.
Why not?
At the time, I had my fiancée, which was willing to watch them.
That's not a good idea. So, Mr. Perry, while I am sympathetic with your position that your in-laws have overcharged the amount, I do think that you were being short-sighted and got a bug in your bonnet when you said, forget this stranger, because your former wife, who's the mother of these 4 children, I am certain would not want to leave the children with anyone who was not capable of babysitting for them. And just because you say, well, I have somebody who's going to do it for a lot less. My girlfriend.
Your Honor, Your Honor?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
I never claimed to not want to pay the person she has talked about. If I would have received a bill in the mail, I would have sent my money to them. I said I had somebody else that could babysit my
Girlfriend.
correct.
Listen to me, Mr. Perry. Put your hand down. Listen to me, Mr. Perry. If you said to your former wife, I'm married, I am in a solid relationship, we've been married for a year or 2, she stays home, she likes the children, they like her, this is going to be a forever thing as far as I'm concerned, let's try to save as much money as we can, my wife will take care of them. I assume that your marriage to your former wife was your first one, is that right?
Correct.
It didn't work out 4 children later.
Correct.
Now you have a girlfriend. There is even more of a likelihood that this isn't going to work out with your girlfriend forever. I think she is perfectly justified in saying, I don't want his girlfriend to babysit for my children. Put your hand down. By the same token, Mr. and Mrs. Nelson, I think it's overreaching. I think you're overreaching a little bit. I think that what you're doing is saying to your daughter, listen, come and put a little frosting on the cake every once in a while. You work off your 40%. We want to be good people. You know, we want to be good grandparents. But you really don't charge your daughter for her 40% of this child care bill. But if you had somebody to babysit for your children for $440 a month, he would be responsible for 60% of that. Okay. It's about $264 a month that he would be responsible for. That's pretty reasonable, isn't it, sir?
Yes, it is.
Good. That's what he's going to pay you for babysitting.
That's fine.
Good. May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. It's 8 months. $2,112. So from now on, Mr. Perry, if you don't want to get into any difficulty, it seems to me that you make those payments on time. She says, fine. Not they. I'm not interested in the plaintiffs. Your wife said that would be fine.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And she's the only one who is a party to the court order ordering you to pay 60% of the daycare. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So right now you owe $2,112, and I suggest that you keep that money up every month as long as they take care of the children. That's all.
Parties are excused, you may step out.
He didn't want to have anything else to do with her, nothing to do with the children.
If they would have sent me a bill on a daily or a monthly basis, I probably would have paid.
He's seen them 4 times in 6 months. I can't help it.
One of the children is not his biological child, and he has to pay child support and daycare on that child.
He hated her, he didn't want to see the kids.
Didn't go like I thought it would, that's for darn sure.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Schmidt versus Meads. Step forward, please.
27-year-old financial advisor Ray Schmidt is suing his former friend, 28-year-old waitress Christy Meads, for an unpaid loan of $1,000. Christy says they were much more than friends, and the money was a gift.
Mr. Schmidt, you claim a loan to the defendant in the amount of $1,000. The defendant acknowledges that you gave her $1,000. She said it was just that. It was a gift from a friend. So tell me when you gave her the $1,000, what it was for, and how you know her.
I originally met Miss Mavis in early part of June. I was introduced through a direct selling company, and our relationship kind of grew from there. We did become friends. We saw one another at different functions, and the way it happened is she and I became friends. And
just social friends, not romantic friends.
No, just social friends. And
That's not true.
just a minute.
through the course of our relationship, she promoted my business, and she got me a few clients. I actually have a copy of the account apps for these clients that she helped get me.
Did you pay her for her service?
No, ma'am.
You never went out socially, is that right?
That's not true. We did go out socially, a group of us. After meetings, we would go to have cocktails after meetings.
How many people in this group?
Usually anywhere from 6 to 10.
So it was a large group. So you weren't intimate social friends? You never went out to dinner alone together?
Yes, we had.
Oh, you did that too?
Yes, ma'am.
How many times did you go out for dinner, just the two of you?
Never dinner, a few lunches.
But never dinner?
Never dinner.
Never dinner. That's fine.
Okay. So would there be any reason why she would perform a business function for you that was financially remunerative for you without billing you?
Yes, because we were friends.
So now let's get to the $1,000 and the why.
She wanted to open up a direct sales office in Las Vegas. And when she went to go do this, she was a little bit short on cash. So I offered, let me loan you the $1,000.
Who brought up the amount?
I asked her, how much do you think you'd need?
Okay.
So it was agreed that she would pay me $500 2 weeks, because we got paid on a 2-week basis through this company, and then the other $500 the next 2 weeks after that.
And she went and she didn't pay you back the money?
No.
And that's why you're here. You have anything else to tell me?
I did, because she brought me these clients, I did in fact purchase a dress for her. It just so happened that...
That's the dress, I assume. I didn't know what that show and tell was. Go ahead.
So here's the receipt for that.
How much did you pay for the dress?
It was $64.86.
Okay, now let's hear your version of the events, madam.
Yeah.
Can you do me a favor? Put the schmata over there. Go ahead.
Okay. I did meet him through a mutual friend that brought him into our office. That's true, and yes, I did help him get clients because he was a very nice young man when I met him. He did try to pursue me in a romantic way, and he had a girlfriend at the time. So for quite some time, I wasn't taken by it. However, he told me that he broke up with her, which later I found out from her calling me that they never broke up. But I did bring in one of the loving cards he gave me as just a business friend, and I don't know if you'd like to read that.
I'd like to see it.
It's definitely not just a friendship card.
Ray, remember this card? Shh.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okie dokie. It's hard to find a love like this, a sharing love, an honest love, a love that's so rare, so beautiful. She's a business friend.
She helped me through a tough time. She had some books and some insight, and that was able to help me take my life to another level.
So you owed her a lot.
Yes.
I read the card. Keep it going.
Yeah. So basically, when I was thinking about moving to Las Vegas, he offered to lend me this money. At first I was like, no, no, no. And then he told me he believed in me, so he was going to give me this money. I came back to Newport Beach, and one of his friends told me that he was back together with Lana. Now, I pretty much talked to him every single day, probably a couple times a day. It was, we had grown a relationship. I basically got very upset about it. I was out with him and one of his other ex-girlfriends, who I was actually helping him with for the business. Yeah, he stays friends with a lot of those. And she was the one who told me that him and Lana were back together, and I was like, So basically, I just decided at that point I just wanted nothing to do with him anymore. And then I got a phone call from Lana who told me that they never broke up.
Let's go back a little bit. When you first started to speak, you said he offered to lend me this money. He offered to lend me this money. Now, I think that at that point, when you said that, you realized that you misspoke.
No, I turned him down.
What did you say to him?
I was a very proud person. I didn't want to take his money.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
You said, I'm too proud, I don't want to take your money.
Yeah, I've never taken money from anybody.
And then what happened?
He said he wanted to give me $1,000.
Yes.
That was when he told me, I believe in you. And I told him, okay.
So what you're telling me is you're basically a very proud person. You've never taken money from anybody, but you were willing to take this as a gift, but not a loan.
Because I really liked him.
Miss Neves, Mr. Schmidt may not be a very nice person. He may have deceived you. He may have deceived the old girlfriend. He may like to string along a lot of ladies at one time, but he loaned you this money. You know he loaned you this money. I now know he loaned you this money, and that the reason you decided not to pay him back this money was because you felt as if he was deceptive and didn't deserve to get it back. Because if I believe anything that you say, you want me to believe everything that you say. So if you tell me that you are a proud person and you never take money from anybody, then that kind of person would have said, I will accept a loan from you that I will pay back, but I'm not accepting a gift from you, because that would mean that I was not a proud person.
Right.
And doesn't take anything from anybody. So I don't believe it. Anyway, judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Spring versus Whitford.
Thanks, Kurt.
Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Ms. Spring, you and the defendant were working together on a construction project. You're both electricians. And it is your claim, Ms. Spring, that the defendant assaulted you.
Yes.
He says he never touched you. So let me hear. When did you start working on this site, and what caused the problem between the two of you?
February 12th. I did the job. It was the end of the day, picked up my tools, and was walking back towards the gang box, where is a central area where we put all our tools and contractors' tools, put away for the end of the day. And I get to the gang box area, and he is having a fit because he can't find a power cord to plug in his lift, which takes you up higher or lower on the job. And he's just going on and on because he can't find this cord. And I had it over with my things. I just didn't have, I had too much stuff already. I didn't have room for that too, so I was going to go back and get the cord. He's just going on and on about how he can't find the cord. And finally I said to him, you know what, I have the cord, just relax, I'll go get it. And he just exploded even more, saying profanities and don't you know what you're doing on this job site. And I told him at that time I walked around the gang box and back the doors were open, and he followed me.
What did you walk around this box for?
Because I had a coat. This is kind of a diagram that I wrote for you to kind of look better there as far as what I'm talking about. I had to get my jacket, and it was on a cart on the other side of the gang box, and he followed me. The argument continued as he followed me around. I reached underneath to get my coat, and as I came back up to face him, he grabbed me by the neck with both hands and pushed me like a jerking motion really hard into some boxes that were behind me. I was in shock when this happened. It happened so fast. I pushed him off me, and he backed up like this, and then he started coming at me again, and then I heard the voice of the foreman saying, come on, you guys, let's get out of here. Knock that off. Quit arguing. Let's go. And I looked at him like, didn't you just see what happened? This man just touched me. And I couldn't speak because he knocked the wind out of me. He was gone. He left. When the foreman said that, he left. He was out the door. It took me a while to get myself together to be able to say to him that he just put his hands on me. He just choked me. Aren't you going to do something? When the foreman heard that, then he went to where he was and talked to him. I don't know what was said. Then the foreman came back. He drove off. And he told me, well, there's nothing I can do. He said he's not going to apologize, and there's nothing I can do. When I got home, I called my union official. He said that he would be on the job the following day, and then he told me to call the police, and that's what I did.
Can I see the report that you filed?
Yes.
Do you have all 6 pages, Your Honor?
I don't have all 6 pages. I don't have 6 pages.
I have a complete report over here if you need it.
I'd like to see it. Okay, so you filed a police report, and then what happened?
That day, the union officials came out. They also took a report and walked around and talked to people. Then I filled out the paperwork to go see the doctor for workman's comp, and that's where I went.
Why did you need workman's comp for?
I had severe strain in my neck and shoulder. There's all my doctor's records.
I'd like to see the doctor's records.
He put me on limited duty, so when I went back to work to give the doctor my foreman, he said there's no such thing as limited duty. There's a form all the way in the back, a pink form about this big, that describes our job description and that there is no limited duty. So then he gave me a quit.
He gave you a what?
A quit instead of a reduction of workforce.
And he fired you?
Excuse me? Yes.
He fired you?
Yes, because he had a choice to make whether he stay or I stay, and I was the one that was told to go.
What happened with the case with the district attorney's office? I assume you filed, the case was dismissed for lack of evidence.
Exactly.
It was not prosecuted for lack of evidence.
Right.
Did you go before any other boards?
The union. I filed a grievance with the union.
And what happened with that grievance?
They sent me a letter that said no decision. They didn't make a decision one way or the other. And I have all the transcripts right here. I don't have a witness, but at the grievance, they did find somebody that heard us arguing and heard boxes being jostled around, and his statement is where I tagged in here, and that's what I have as far as a witness. It starts with the first yellow paper.
I have a letter in addition to that, Your Honor.
All right, sir. Let me hear your version of these events, please.
My story is basically the same. We did get into a verbal confrontation, but I did not touch her. Now, on the police report, on the top, the disposition...
Don't tell me, please. First I asked you what happened. Then you'll point me in the direction of evidence that you want me to look at. I asked you what happened.
I will agree with everything except for the fact that I did touch her, and I did not touch her. I did get in her face, and yes, we did have a verbal confrontation.
What about boxes being sort of shuffled around?
No boxes were shuffled around whatsoever, Your Honor.
No, the witness here seems to say that there was some boxes shuffled around, although the witness didn't see what happened back there.
As I recall, at the time the officer took the reports, he did not note it in his police report, and he talked to everybody on the job site. When he came back to interview me, he asked the foreman if anybody else had any additional information, and they did not add that to the police report.
I don't know whether you put your hands around her neck, sir, because she gives conflicting stories about that. First you say, in the initial report that you gave to the police, and this is in your report, Spring said her comment to Whitford made him angry. He grabbed her around the collar of her sweatshirt, near the neck area, and then shoved her into a nearby stack of boxes. Now that somehow escalated from grabbing her around the collar of her sweatshirt to having put his hands around your throat, because that's what you said some 45 minutes later, that he put his hands around your throat.
I had a hooded sweatshirt on. That was what was around my neck. He didn't take the collar and pull it. He had his hands around my sweatshirt and my throat.
How long have you been a member of this union?
17 years.
How many complaints have you filed?
As far as?
As far as any job-related action?
Oh, yeah. I had worked for another contractor, probably 4 years prior. And I had it. Well, they let me go because they said that I wasn't getting along with other workers.
No. How many times have you filed either a grievance or attempted to apply for workman's compensation?
Workman's comp?
Yes.
Yes, I've had a back injury earlier to this, about 4 years earlier to this, and a wrist injury also.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Electrician Jordana Spring says she was assaulted on the job by fellow electrician Peter Whitford. Jordana claims during an argument, Peter choked her.
Now, the one that happened 4 years ago, was that about the same time that you had a problem at another job site? You said it was about 4 years ago.
Right, no, the incident that I was referring to was before the Coliseum incident, the wrist in the back.
What was the Coliseum incident?
The wrist in the back.
That was at the same time?
Yes.
Well, you said one happened 4 years ago and one happened 2 years ago.
No. The first injury that I filed workman's comp for was my neck and my shoulder and my wrist, and that happened on the Coliseum job. And the incident I was telling to you prior to this happened on the BART job, where I was let go because of controversy, working with people.
And when was that?
6 years ago.
6 years?
Yeah.
Did you receive any compensation from your union with regard to this incident?
This one, no.
What about with regard to neck, shoulder, and wrist 4 years ago?
Yes.
What?
$100 a month, and with taxes it comes out to like $96 a month.
Now, you said you had something else you wanted to show me, Mr. Whitford.
Yes, Your Honor. Here's the primary treating physician's progress report.
Can I see it, please?
In the yellow and the highlight, you will note that it says it's dated the 13th, and you note that the change in treatment plan is circled.
Yes,
That means that you have a pre-existing condition.
yes.
And then under the treatment plan, have there been any changes in treatment plan? If so, why? That's not answered because she was under treatment at that particular time.
Anything else you want to show me?
Here's a letter from the union.
I don't
That
read
shows-
letters.
Okay. This is attached to the hearing. This are the results of the hearing.
Oh, that's the result of the hearing. I'll read it.
Okay. And that letter shows that no action was taken. And then I have a second statement that was also attached to the hearing notes.
It says no decision or action could be taken at this time.
Right, they dropped
Okay.
it.
Go ahead.
And then also on the police report, if you'll note, they wrote the disposition on top. That it was T2'd, whatever that means. That means...
Because they're not prosecuting it.
Right.
There's insufficient evidence.
Right, that's
What
exactly
else?
what they did with it. And I tried to get the other sheets, but they said they're keeping the computer for only 3 months, and then they purged the computer, I guess.
What else?
And then attached to the union filing, also, which is part of this, we have another story here, second story, where this one says I now lunged at her, grabbed her
Could I
by
see
the,
it, please?
grabbing her with both hands, and I pushed her into a stack of boxes behind her. You know, a little more melodramatic, so the story seems to keep escalating as we go.
What else?
Now, regarding the incident, I sat there and walked away primarily because I did not want the argument to escalate into a physical confrontation.
You didn't go to work the next day, sir. You want to explain to me why?
I called in because I was afraid it would escalate into a physical confrontation.
Why?
And I don't cross that line.
Why?
My mother is a judge, and I've been taught you don't cross that line.
Well, you had an employer, you had a supervisor, you had somebody else there who you could have said very easily to, listen, I don't want to go anywhere near her. Did you report to work the next day?
I did, yes.
Okay. I don't want to go anywhere near her. Right?
Exactly. I didn't want
You
to take
just
a
went-
chance of anything escalating. I did not want to be around her just in case something could happen, in case she could pull those strings, if you know what I mean.
Mr.
And,
Whitford,
yes,
I
sir.
want to explain something to you, sir. You and I both know that you put your hands on her. There isn't a question in my mind that you put your hands on her, sir. I don't think that you injured her. That's where I think your problem is, madam. I don't think that you were injured. I think that you were offended that he put his hands on you. You probably opened up a fresh mouth to him. He opened up a fresh mouth to you, and the fight was on. And he was probably treating you like he would treat some guy, which is he grabbed you by the sweatshirt, and you pushed him, and he pushed you. Ordinarily, it would be gone. It would be over. You really weren't hurt, but he didn't say sorry. So, Mr. Whitford,
Yes, sir.
don't try to razzle-dazzle me with I didn't put my hands on her, sir. You and I both know you didn't. Even one of your cohorts said in the transcript, I didn't see what happened. I couldn't see anything that happened, but I know that they were behind the tool shed, and I heard a scuffle, and I heard arguing, and then I heard something like something going into boxes. That's from somebody that works with you.
Yes.
He didn't get fired. So he had no reason to make up a story about hearing somebody get pushed into boxes. And that's what you did. You pushed her into boxes. I don't, however, believe you, Miss Spring, when you say you were injured. Injured to the extent that you could not work. Do you understand me? Okay.
Our job is not the same. It's a lot more physical than a lot of other jobs. That's
You
why I think-
weren't hurt. He grabbed you by the sweatshirt collar and he pushed you into some boxes. The boxes raffled. You got up, you pushed him back, and then the foreman came over, and said, what's going on here? And you both backed off. Foreman had some words with him and said, listen, why don't you, it's a problem. Why don't you just take off? But he's not allowed to put his hands on you. That's the bottom line. And I don't know why they couldn't come to this conclusion when they had all kinds of hearings. I know why the district attorney chose not to pursue this case. The district attorney chose not to pursue this case because you weren't hurt. And the union, I don't know why the union couldn't come to a conclusion. It was so easy for me in these few short moments. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. That's all. Don't put your hands on her.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Well, I guess the moral of the story is if you tell your story enough times, finally, eventually you're going to find somebody who believes it.
I'm really happy the way things turned out, and I'm glad that Judy heard me.
I'm tired. I'm glad it's over. I get to move on now, finally.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Gretsch versus Garrett. Step forward, please.
50-year-old store manager Deborah Gretsch is suing her son, 26-year-old construction worker Troy Gerrits, for an unpaid loan. Troy says the loan should be offset because his 18-year-old brother ran up his cable bill by renting movies.
All right, I believe that there are certain things that we can agree upon in this case, so it will simplify the issue. Mrs. Gretsch, the Defendant is your son,
Yes.
who is 26 years old?
Yes.
According to your complaint, there came a time when he fell behind in some bills, he wanted to consolidate his bills, and you agreed to loan him $6,000, 6,000 some odd dollars. And you acknowledged that that loan was made to you.
Yes.
He did repay some of the loan for a considerable period of time. The balance on the loan is some $4,400.
Right.
And you acknowledge that the balance of the loan is some $4,400. Is that right?
Yes.
But you have a defense.
Yes.
Your defense is that your brother, your other son, 17, moved in with you
Yes.
and ran up a huge cable bill,
Yes.
the amount of $3,500,
Yes.
that you believe is your mother's responsibility, that you want to deduct from the loan.
Yes.
Okay, that's your defense. Now, was your 17-year-old living with you before he moved in with his brother?
Yes. But he moved in with his brother and his dad.
His brother and his father? Do you live with your father?
Not no more.
But you did.
Yep. And my grandparents.
And when did he move in with you?
1999. I don't know quite which month it was.
January. And when did he start running up this cable bill?
As soon as he moved in.
How do you know that?
Well, he's the only one that was in the room renting the movies.
So he was renting the movies from
Pay-per-view.
pay-per-view.
Pay-per-view movies.
Is that right?
Yes.
Who got the first bill?
I get all the bills.
So when you got your February bill and you saw all these bills on there, what did you do about it?
Put a lock code on it. He figured that out, so I disconnected it from the phone. And then the bills don't come not unless it's hooked up to the phone. Once I hook the phone up, I get this large amount of bill for...
Just a minute. He could not have run up a $3,500 cable bill in 1 month.
No, it wasn't. It was over a year and a half, I believe.
Well, then that's your responsibility. That's your
For
responsibility.
me to pay for him?
He's living under your control in your home. You say you got all the bills, so you were in control of all the bills, Mr. Gerads.
Yes.
It was your responsibility to see to it that an appropriate mechanism was put in place so that he could not rent any more of these movies after you saw that he was abusing the privilege after the first month.
I'll let him explain what he did through all this, renting the movies and everything, that I feel that she should have to pay me because he was a minor. No matter what, if he was living with her or not.
When did your father move out?
My father never moved out.
So what about your father?
He doesn't have a job, no nothing. So, what am I supposed to do, support him too?
No, sir. What you're supposed to do is if you can't get your brother to stop renting pay-per-views that you are responsible for, you kick him out of the house.
He wasn't 18.
So, you're not responsible for him, sir, to keep him in your house? Kick him out.
How would you feel about kicking your own son out at 15, 16 years old?
Just a minute. He's not your son. Kick him out.
He's my brother, though.
Then pay his bills. If you can't figure out a way to control him, pay his bills. Don't say, I'm not going to pay his bills. I'm going to pay this, and I'm going to deduct it from what I owe my mother. What kind of stupidity is that?
Get the money out of her.
No. You elected to take your brother into your house. Evidently, he chose not to live with his mother. He chose to live in your house with your unemployed father.
I do not own the house. He moved in with my father and my grandparents, and I was living there, and he was living there with them.
But evidently, the cable bill was in your name.
Okay, the cable bill's in my name,
Then
but
you
who
have
should
to
take care of it?
Just a second. Cut it off.
I did cut it off finally after I got that bill that had a large amount on it.
You should have cut it off immediately when you saw he was doing it. Immediately. That was your responsibility. It was wrong. He's a minor. But as a result of your negligence and not seeing to it that his conduct was monitored while in your home, you can't visit that on your mother. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,400. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He's a minor.
Seated, ladies' absence.
Mr. Gray, when were you and the defendant divorced?
In 1995.
And how many children do you have?
1.
Your lawsuit involves the child.
Yes.
It is your claim that pursuant to your judgment of divorce, each of you is required to pay 1/2 of the unreimbursed medical expenses for the child.
Yes.
And that you took the child to see a psychologist.
Yes.
The child was treated by the psychologist, and you want the defendant to pay 1/2 of that bill.
Yes.
which was how much, 300 and some odd dollars?
For the psychologist alone, it was $195 for her part.
And then,
The medical expenses totaled up $595 for her part.
what were the rest of the medical expenses for?
Doctor's visits for attention deficit disorder, his checkups, medication.
Over what period of time did you have him treated?
From 1998 up to present day.
When did you first present her with the bill?
My wife and I have presented her with the bills every few months all along, and she's refused to pay every time.
What reason did she give you for not wanting to pay?
She says she doesn't have to pay. The courts aren't going to make her.
Ms. Gray, was your son diagnosed as having attention deficit disorder?
Yes.
Your defense is that he took him to a doctor that was out of plan.
Yes.
And therefore, since you're covered by some sort of a health plan, is it a private health plan or is it a state health plan?
State.
That since he could have gotten the treatment for nothing, you shouldn't have to pay anything.
Yes.
Are you the primary custodian for the child?
Yes.
Why didn't you take the child then to the doctor?
He was 4 years old. I was going to wait until he started school and see if it was something that he would grow out of.
Well, clearly he didn't.
Once he established the doctor down in Bakersfield, my pediatrician tried to keep in touch with him. Because of the medication, we were trying to keep it in one place. And I am right now, under my pediatrician's recommendation, having a reevaluation done.
So you consented to him taking the child to this doctor after 1998?
I didn't consent to it. He never told me about it.
No, he did tell you about it. Initially, he had to have told you because if the child was prescribed medication in 1998 and you are the child's primary custodian, you would have had to have given the child medication when the child was with you.
Yes, I do give him the medication.
So if you gave him the medication, then you knew that the child had a diagnosis, which I'm sure you discussed with your former husband, so you consented to it.
Yes, with my doctor's consent.
Fine. You didn't say to him at that time, Miss Gray, I don't want you to take the child to your doctor anymore. I will take care of it here.
I've tried to.
You didn't?
No,
Can I see your judgment of divorce, please?
I have told him that. I've never been presented a bill either.
Okay, well, this order clearly says that both parties shall be responsible for one half of all such expenses not otherwise covered by insurance.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? So when I asked you that question, Miss Gray, you clearly knew when the child was 4 that the child had certain problems, and that you said you wanted to wait until he got to school to see whether the problems would resolve themselves.
He was my first child, and I assumed that it was basically being a 4-year-old child, just busy and playing, and I had him in Head Start. They didn't see any reason to take him in for a diagnosis at that time. My pediatrician wanted to keep it separate and just keep in contact with that doctor that he took him to, who is...
So you consented to him taking the child to that doctor?
I guess
If you
I did.
consented to him taking the child to that doctor, under the terms of your judgment of divorce, you are responsible for one half of the unreimbursed medical bills.
I provided him with a Medi-Cal card. He chose to take him to a doctor that didn't accept Medi-Cal and now wants me to pay for it. And I have provided him with insurance, which he is court-ordered to provide, and he doesn't.
Do you?
Yes, that's the Medi-Cal. I provide that for him.
How do you provide Medi-Cal for him?
I get AFDC because I can't work.
Well, then the state provides it. You don't provide it. I provide it. Bird provides it, but you don't provide it. You
It's
don't
because
provide
I
it.
can't work.
Whatever. You don't provide it. You can't say, I provide him insurance. You don't provide him with insurance.
He's got insurance because of me.
Well, let me ask you this question, Mr. Gray. Is it true that your former wife is unemployed?
Yes, she has been for 7 years.
So how do you expect her to pay this money?
She gets AFDC, and she is living with the father of her other 2 children that has a $45,000 a year income.
How can you get AFDC if you are married?
I'm not
That
married.
I'm not worried
Just a
about.
second.
She's not married to the man. She's living with him.
Do you have other children?
Yes, I do.
How old are they?
5 and 2.5.
Well, why can't you work?
Because I've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. In 1998, the counselor that Cody was seeing didn't want me to work because they wanted me home with him. After that, the county didn't want me to work because I had a child under the age of 1. Then my current doctor does not want me to work because of the fibromyalgia. I've got the papers and the documents.
I'm just curious. If you can't work, but you can have 2 young children, and you're living with somebody now full-time, and you have 2 children with that person, and that person is employed?
Yes.
What kind of work does that person do?
He's a roofer.
He's a roofer. You live in your own home?
We rent a duplex, yes.
Okay. Can I see the bills, please?
We aren't married because of this. Because in the last 6 years, he's taken me to court 7 times over custody issues.
What does that have to do with not being married?
My fiance is afraid that it's going to affect his income and his taxes.
Well, it may, but you can't choose not to work.
I'm not choosing
Yes,
not to work.
you choose not to work. You cannot choose not to work if you have a financial obligation for this child who is older.
He's
You have-
$11,979 in debt to child support. I'm not choosing not to work. I tried to work in October, from October 9th of
Miss
2000.
Gray, when you have 2 children and you live with a man as a family, and the reason you are not married is to avoid certain obligations.
I'm not avoiding obligations.
Yes, you are. If you're living with a man who is a roofer, who earns a substantial living, and you have 2 children with him, and you're getting welfare, that, according to me, is a scam. That's a scam.
The county knows about it, and
The county may know about it. The county may have its head up behind, but I don't.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Richard Gray says ex-wife Bethany Gray refuses to pay for half their son's medical bills. Bethany says Richard refuses to use a doctor covered by her insurance.
Miss Gray, I've been in family court for a very, very long time. There is no question that if you married the man who is the father of your 2 young children, you would not be receiving welfare.
Every time
There is
we
no
plan to
question.
get married, he has taken me to court. He has harassed me through court 7 times in 6 years, trying to get custody. And the judge in Kern County finally moved venue from Kern County to Placer County because he has done harassing me.
Miss Gray, that is
through
not
court.
harassing. If he is trying to exercise his right to get custody of his child for whatever reason, because he feels as if it's in the child's best interest, and it very well may be in the child's best interest, I don't know, I'm not hearing that case, that is not harassment. What I said to you was very clear and simple. You live with a man with whom you have 2 young children, you are not married, and there is no question that if you married this man with whom you are living, you would not be receiving welfare.
I'm
Period.
not concerned
End of
about the
discussion.
welfare. I've done it to keep the health insurance on my son because he doesn't pay child support. He doesn't carry health insurance.
Just 1 second. He doesn't pay child support to you, madam. He pays child support, whatever he pays, to the county because the county is supporting you. Has nothing to do with you.
I have a check stub where they take my child support straight out of my payroll.
Whatever child support he pays goes directly to welfare. And I'm telling you that if you were, in fact, married to the man who is the father of your 2 children, you wouldn't be receiving support from Bird.
We haven't been able to get married because of this man.
Then you shouldn't be able to have 2 children with him. What do you mean you haven't been able to get married? That's ridiculous.
We can't afford it. Every time we have set a wedding date, he's taken me back to court. He does this on a regular basis.
Listen to me, Miss Gray. You're not following what I'm saying to you. You owe him for half of the unreimbursed medical bills for your son since 1998. Your pediatrician said to you, let the doctor who's been treating him continue to treat him. You said, okay, you are responsible under the judgment of your divorce for half of the unreimbursed bills. You're going to pay them. What are the bills in total? Come on.
They come to $723 for her part.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $723. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
The person can only milk the system for so long before they have to be paid for what they agreed in court.
I'm not on welfare because I'm lazy. My doctor said I cannot work.
She needs to pay her part. It took 2 of us to bring him here. It's going to take 2 of us to raise him.
I want him to leave me alone, visit with his son, and just leave me alone.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Cantor versus Ward Andrew. Step forward, please.
31-year-old psychotherapist Lisa Catton is suing 49-year-old telemarketer Aduni Andre and 35-year-old homemaker Maureen Ward. Lisa says the defendant's sons threw rocks at her car.
Miss Ward and Miss Andrews, would you have a seat? I'd like your boys to come up here, please. Step up, gentlemen. What is your first name?
Chad.
And yours?
DeAndre.
How old are you, Chad?
13.
And you, DeAndre?
13.
You know who I am?
Yes.
Seen me a couple of times?
Yes.
So you know what to expect?
Yes.
You know that when you're here, we only want to hear about what actually happened. No half-truths, no quarter-truths, no nothing. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You boys were playing outside on September 14th?
Yes.
Yes. Who were you playing with?
Just me and him.
2 of you. And I want you to start out by knowing that I believe You're not bad boys. You're kids. Were you throwing rocks?
Yes. Yes.
What were you throwing rocks at?
Cars. Cars.
Tấm trong này game của मैं कैमरा अंदर में कवा वीडियो ले जोड़ूंगा हाय हाय दर खतरनाक गेम त्याच बघूंगा मागकी का ना देना da غدي كان در ولا مرة دا فيديو وشنو جد جودي باني لهم جد جودي जेड जुड़ी हो जेड जुड़ी एपिसोड बने वो लोगों में सो से डॉलर्स जोड़ शी ना ये $50,000 में पकड़ रही आया जेड जुड़ी एपिसोड्स हाँ जेड जुड़ी जेड जुड़ी हाँ سرطان كمان ولي ولي سرطان كمان لا ما صار حطنا شيء مو بس تبقى مال سراكي आरामी दाड़ू में दे दा हाली दिसी चीज़ कार गलत थे और हालक रिस्क के चीज़ लेकिन नोर दे की सनश्ता आरामी दाने दी नहीं नहीं है ना That's it.